All right, so let's get started with the math here. So in the math course, again, you can once you click in, you can go into your modules. Oops, not grades. You can go into the modules here. And once we're in the modules, again, you should have already completed the syllabus acknowledgement and the online introduction activity that was due the first day of class. If you haven't finished any of this, please do so immediately. A couple of other things just to mention before we get into the assignments. In your math course, there is this option here called Math Videos and Other Helpful Resources. If you click onto the top link, we've gone ahead and added videos to help you out. So for example, let's say I'm clicking onto this page here, and maybe you're struggling with let's say we're struggling with chapter 2, which is multiplying and dividing fractions. So if I click on that chapter, and you can do all sections, or if you know you're struggling with section 2.2, for example, let's do 2.2. The one that you want to click on from all of these is this option here called Section Video Lectures. So if I click on this, I can go ahead and click Find Now. And then under here, you'll see this pop up. Now, when we're looking at these are cool options because the one with the time stamp like this is the full video. These are just smaller objectives covered within this video. The reason why there's objectives is because when you're looking at your textbook for the math course, it'll tell you, let me show you. So it'll show you where you can find certain math problems and what objective they cover within that section. So if I'm looking at your math book here, and if I'm looking at my homework problems, for example, here, as we can see, it's already telling us 1.A is objective A. So that when we're looking at those videos, this is why it's important to know. And let's say if I'm going over to my exercise set, you see, if you're given any of these problems, then you know you can look at objective A because that's what it's being covered. So again, now if I go back here, maybe I just want to look at objective A for that section. But you would click the link, you'll see a pop-up just like this, and you can hit play. And again, you have this live instruction going over these. Now, these are super helpful. They do cover the bases or the basics of what you're going to be doing for homework. So again, if you don't know what factoring is, this is what it is, right? Find the factors of 25. And this instructor here does a pretty good job of breaking it down. Now, one question that I get asked a lot for the math is there a set way that we have to solve these? Do we have to use Common Core? Do we have to use anything? You solve your math the way you want to solve it. There is no restrictions on how to solve these. Now, once again, I'm just going to re-show you how to get here again. So in the math course, when you're in your modules, it's going to be the third box down, and it's going to be this first link again. You would just click this link and click this button. Then once you're into the actual launch here, for some reason, if it doesn't pop up, you'll see something here that may say pop-up blocked. You can click on that and make sure that you hit allow all pop-ups from Pearson. Okay, so once you do that, and then you select whatever chapter you're struggling with. Again, let's say chapter 2. If you want to do all sections, it's fine. But the key thing to remember is the section video lectures here. I just select that, hit find now. And then here are all the objectives. But, this can get pretty long. So again, I would recommend maybe doing section by section if needed. So if I want to do multiplying fractions, I can do that, hit find now, and here we go. And I can just watch those videos. Again, if you do need additional tutoring, we do offer tutoring. We have our math tutor. So you can message math@cnicollege.edu and we can help you out with any of these problems. Now let's get into week 1. When you're in week 1, of course, you're seeing all of these things here. But again, these are just PowerPoints. These are not something that you are required to look at, but they are there as a helpful resource on top of your textbook. I would strongly recommend looking at the textbook when you're solving these or when you're doing your homework, because your textbook gives you examples that are almost like one-to-one to whatever your homework is. So just like what we did with the English, let's start with the discussion exercise first. So here in your discussion not your discussion actually. Let's start with the practice exercises. Your practice exercises, again, these you'll always have 2 attempts. There's no time limit. And again, they're just like small quizzes. anything that says review or practice exercise, again, they will all be due by Sunday before midnight. And your first one here is on chapter 1. So your first practice exercise, again, covers chapter 1. And when you're doing this, again, it's anything from that chapter. So like here, it's saying add 4 plus 11 plus 13. You can go ahead and either, if you want to, use a calculator. I would try your best to solve it on a piece of paper, or if you can do it in your head, you can do it in your head, right? But it's just that multiple choice. You do not have to show your work for any of these practice exercises for math. You just don't. Which is good, right? You just go ahead and try to solve these as best you can. For this first one, you have 20 questions. And again, you get, there's no time limit, but you only get 2 attempts. So make sure you use those wisely. If you get some wrong, you can always come back and review the ones you missed, because all of these practice exercises will help you when you're doing your midterm and your final. Your midterm is essentially like a comprehensive exam for everything you do from chapters 1 all the way through, I believe it's chapter 6 probably, but it's the first 5 weeks. Whatever the first 5 weeks covers, that is what you'll be seeing in your midterm, and then so on for the final. The final actually does have about, I would say, anywhere from 60 to maybe 80% of what you see early on, and the rest of it is some of the newer things, but we'll get into that at a later time. But again, you should know these things by the time you get into the practice quiz. Now, the second one here is on chapter 2. Again, if you want to be sure you're ready for any of these, again, you can use your textbook, or you could use these PowerPoints to help guide you. Like in chapter 2, we see here we're talking more about fractions and mixed numbers. We're talking about factors, prime factorization, simple form of a fraction, multiplying fractions, mixed numbers, and finally dividing fractions and mixed numbers. So it is important to know how these work, because when it comes to math, all of this stuff is foundations for what's next to come in the following chapters, right? So it's super useful. And for chapter 2, again, what you're going to be seeing is a lot of the same. Again, no time limit, 2 attempts, and just like this. But now we're working with fractions here, as we saw, and mixed numbers. So we can see here, for example, solve and then write the answer in simplest form. So we're going to go ahead and find what's 1/11 of 77, right? So we're going to look for that. And again, if it's asking you to do it in simplest form, then make sure you do it in simplest form. Sometimes you'll see some that say, do not simplify. So if it tells you not to simplify, then don't simplify. But again, feel free to use your textbook, use some of your notes as you're doing any of these. For the math ones, depending on your skill level with math, I would say that doing each of these will probably take you anywhere from about 30 minutes to an hour each, depending on your skill level with the math. And again, this is with you. You should have, like, at the very least, your textbook ready. You should have just a few other tools and resources ready for you when you're using those. But yeah, so that's how you would do those. Those are pretty straightforward. It's either you know it or you don't. Now, for the discussion exercise in the math, this is where I know some students, can get a little confused sometimes. But once you start doing this, you'll start getting an idea. As it states here, you are assigned a number, and so for your initial post, you'll see what you have to do. So if you go to your announcements, this is where I believe your number should be. Here you go. If you go into your announcements, you'll see your numbers. So if I click on this one, I'll see my name here. Now, again, you may not see your name on this recording here just because there's 2 math sections. There's Math 101-1 and 101-2. But for example, say if I am Gusan, then my number is 1. Well, that's really all you have to remember for the rest of this term is whatever number you're given, that's the number that you'll be using for the rest of the term. So now, like, for example, say I know I'm Gusan. So you go to your announcements on the top left. You see here where it says discussion question assignment numbers. Oh yeah. Click on that. And then, yeah, and then you'll see your number. So like you said, you're number 8, right? So for example, I can go into my modules now. From here, I can go ahead and go into my discussion exercise. So now that I know I'm number 8, for example, I would look for my number. Here's 8. you would have to do these problems. You're going to be given a set of 3. Once you get into some other chapters, you may have 2 problems, but for the most part, you'll have at least 2 to 3 homework assignments that you'll be doing, at least 2. So here you have the first problem, if I was number 8, is section 1.9, number 13, section 2.1, number 72, and 2.5, number 66. This is the same for everybody. So you have those 3 problems. For these, you do have to show your work, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. But just like your other discussions, your initial post, meaning when you answered these 3 problems, those are what we call your initial post. There's not really a lot of writing unless you need to explain more information.
Do it on paper, take a picture, then send it to
Yep, that's what that's one of the ways I was about to go over it is and it works for a lot of students too. For example, just like this, we have the student that wrote did their problem on a piece of paper and uploaded it. And again, to do this is I can go ahead and click here where it says reply. And this is why I also recommend using the Canvas app on your phone, because on your Canvas app, and again, it works for both iOS and Android. When you open the Canvas app and you click into your math course, then you click into your discussion, you can actually hit the reply. And there's like a little paper clip that you'll see. It looks like, let me see here if I can find it. I don't know if it's going to have it here, but it'll look like a little paper clip icon. You click that, and then it'll say, use your camera to take a photo, or you can upload it from your photo library. Now, so if I choose camera, then I can instantly just take a picture and it will upload, and you can just hit post and you'll see it post. You can also, if you already have an iPhone, you have your MacBook, and it's all connected through iCloud, then you can use AirDrop from your iPhone to your MacBook, or from your iPad to your MacBook, whatever other device you're using, to take the picture, and then you can AirDrop it. Once you AirDrop it, it'll get put into your downloads, and then you can just hit insert. You can do image and upload your image just like this. You can click here, and then you'll be able to find the image from your downloads. Once you do that, it will post here. Then you just hit post reply. Give it a good few seconds to actually load so you can see the image. And then from there, you can hit a post reply and you'll see it. You can always, and I strongly recommend to double check your work, make sure that it's loaded. Like here, you can already see that everybody is, most people are putting their work just on paper. And again, that's a good way to do it. The other way is, if you know how to use this stuff, you can go ahead and you can use tables to help you. Like, for example, if I wanted to show something, I can use a table to write my numbers and then solve some of the problems. I can use the insert equation option here. And what this does is it lets me use like operators, relationships, arrows, and all sorts of things that you may be like, well, how do I do a fraction and adding it on here, or an exponent, right? So I can just do that. For example, I can go ahead and actually, let me delete this. And I can say 2 to the power of 3. That's how I do it, right? And then I can hit the right arrow. I can hit the plus sign here. And then I can say, okay, well, I can keep adding whatever I want to add. So that's how you would go ahead and do that if you want it that way. But honestly, the easiest way that I would recommend that you do this is by taking a picture just like this and doing it. So again, just to kind of recap how you do these discussions is, the first time you may not know your numbers, so you go to your announcements right here, and you'll see Miss Dempsey where she posts discussion question assignment numbers. If you click this, this won't work, but you click the title right here. Then you'll see your name once you know your name. So again, if I'm Gusan, I know I'm number 1. If I'm Elias, I know I'm number 2. As long as you write that somewhere, then you know what your number is for the rest of the term. Then you go to your discussion and you look for your homework. So let me kind of just show you how you would find your problems, just if you don't know how to do this, is if I am number 1 and I have section, this is one of my homework assignments, section 1.9, number 1. Then I go into my text here. Over here on the left-hand side, I have my table of contents. So it was 1.9, number 1. So I'm going to select here, 1.9. Now, again, I would strongly urge you to review these examples if you don't know what you're doing, because this book does a a very great job of explaining stuff to you and giving you like sweet examples, and you can do some practice stuff. I really do like this book a lot. Most of these Pearson books are pretty good with the math. Now I'm going to keep going until I finally find the review or the let's see what's it called, the exercise set. So once I go and find my exercise set here, again, this little play sign means that there's videos for these. Here, where you actually see the green play sign next to them, that's where you can access those videos, just like we covered here in your math class under the math videos and other helpful resources. Just click there, and then you'll be able to find those math problems. So again, for example, I was 1.9 number one. So I would go ahead here and just do, if I'm doing this, then it's 4 times 4 times 4, right? So then that just means that I would have to show my work. Now, some of these are pretty easy. So for example, if I'm going to go ahead here and do that problem, let me go ahead and enable this here, and let's do, okay. So again, I have 4 times 4 times 4, right? And it says write using exponential notation. Well, what we know is we have 4 times 4 times 4. And generally, all this means is that you're going to do what? You're going to multiply these 3 times, right? And it's not 4 times 3. This is where people can get that wrong. If you think that it's going to be 4 times 3, again, that is incorrect, right? Because what does 4 times 3 give you? It gives you 12, right? But what we're doing here, and again, this is wrong. This whole thing is wrong. This is not what we want. When you're doing exponents, and we're looking at these here, it's telling us we're going to go ahead and multiply it 4 and 4 again by 4. So the best way I would show my work for this one is, let me write it all out again. And this is what I'm trying to solve. So what's 4 times 4? So you got 16. Okay, let's bring this down here. What is 16 times 4?
64.
So I believe that's right. So we have 64, right? So let's see, let's double check our work here. So we got 16 times 4, 64, right? So you're good. 64. So in reality, and we, again, it tells us, so this is the way, this is our answer. This is what we should have. But that's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is turning this into an exponent. So again, I showed my work here, but this is what we want. What we want is to show 4 to what? The power of 3, or 4 cubed. This is showing us that this is really what we're doing. And we can check this if we put this into another calculator that can do exponential math. Is saying, okay, well, does this here equate this? And it does. This does not mean 4 times 3. You're not doing it times. This just means it's going to be 4 times 4 times 4. And then this right here would be how I show my work. And then I can go ahead, and again, I can take a picture of this and upload this to my what do you call it, to my discussion post. Now you can do something like I just did here. I use this program called Excalidraw. And from here, if I wanted to save this or do my problems, I can keep doing them all. And then I can export this. So here it'll say export to image or save to, or I can just do a screenshot. On your MacBook, if you want to do a screenshot of certain things, Command-Shift-4 does, so if I do Command-Shift-4, this one does selection printing. So if I just select an option, I can go ahead and select this, and it does a screenshot. Or if I do Command-Shift-3, it does the entire desktop. Okay, so those are some cool little tricks there. And again, this is just a good tool if you don't want to use paper and just use an image. It's the same thing. Then once you have your 3 problems, you would then go ahead, post reply, and add them all here. And that is what you have for your initial post. Again, now for the peer response. For the peer response here, it says, in addition, you must also complete at least 2 subjective peer responses, right? And like it says here, simply congratulating them on a good job or on a job well done will not be considered a substantive response. So don't just write, oh, I saw you solved it, good job, or, or it's wrong. My recommendation is to provide good feedback. And the best way you can do that is by checking their math homework. So you can see here already, and I think I've seen this with some of your classmates here, is like, for example, this right here is a great post. You have the homework explained and you have the work shown. Not only that, but the student provided the steps of order of operations and everything else, and they provided some clarity on how to solve these. Now here is somebody else checked the homework. And again, the benefit with math, or the thing that I like with math is that you can solve these problems in various ways, right? There's different ways that you can solve these things as you're doing them. But the student here, for their response, is they went ahead and solved it again, just to see that everything was right. And again, that's the same thing that you would do. Is again, Timothy went ahead, saw the student's problems, and just checked it. Because this in a math class shows that you can not only solve your problems, but you can solve somebody else's and check that they're doing it right too. Now, if somebody does, for whatever reason, make a mistake, it happens. Just let them know in a kind and friendly way. Don't hurt, don't bash them if they got it wrong. It happens sometimes, especially when you're doing orders of operations, when you're doing long problems, you could accidentally, instead of a plus sign, you put a minus sign, or things happen. Or even when you write it, you might say, oh, I thought this was a minus sign for whatever reason. So just be careful. It happens. But yeah, so that's like a kind of a quick overview of how to do that. So again, for your math class this week, these things, again, these are just PowerPoints. You're not required to look at them. Just go down here where it says assignments. You're going to ensure that these two practice exercises, as we saw, are due by Sunday and before midnight. But this one discussion here is due by tonight before midnight. And again, just do those 3 problems and you'll be fine. You are more than okay to use your textbook. Of course, you have to use your textbook, but you're okay to use your calculators. A couple of resources that I recommend for math is like this one here is a good way to check. Wolfgram Alpha helps you with checking your math problems to solve these. This is one of good ones. There's a bunch of other math tools out there. And again, this is just one, especially once you start having to maybe double check if you're graphing or just to make sure, like maybe you solved it, or you're doing it, but you're getting it wrong and you want to see where you messed up. Well, you can look at the step-by-step solutions and that can help you out too. But that's kind of a little recap for the math class there.